Hello guys and welcome to my new video. And I know the hair, this is what happens on my streams, guys. The crazy stuff happens, but maybe this subconsciously I'm trying to represent a class that I might play in Shadowlands, but this is not the video for that. The video for that is gonna come out in a couple of days. I was like, hey guys, I can totally split this into two videos. This is the video that is going to go through my thought process when deciding on the main character, because a lot of people on Twitch, a lot of people have been asking me, first of all, why do I play a healer? Why do I spend the amount of time that I have to play this game? Why do I spend it all, or majority of it, on healing? Because a lot of people might be like, am I missing out on not playing a healer? And besides that, I'll be talking about things like my kind of checklist that I do before deciding on what class to put all my efforts into, because this is going to be applicable to everybody, not only healers. But at the end of the video, I will talk about why I specifically play healers and why they're so fun. Let's get started. Before deciding on what character to play, I feel it's very, very important to have a little checklist that I do. Now, the number one thing in my eyes is setting goals. In order to determine what class you should play or you want to play, having goals is really important. Now, for example, maybe you're only going to focus on Mythic Plus content. If you're only going to focus on Mythic Plus content, I feel your class choice might change, because let's say, for example, you want to get rank 1 Mythic Plus healer. You might consider playing Resto Druid because they've been a very strong option. And maybe your choice is already made for you because all you want to do is get that rank 1 in Mythic Plus. Maybe you just want to play raids, and again, if you want to play raids, maybe your choice is going to be influenced by the guild, which is very important, and I'll talk about that later on. Maybe you just want to have a nice balance between raids and Mythic Plus. Maybe you're doing mythic content, maybe doing heroic content, maybe doing normal content. Maybe, for example, you are just doing solo content, because I've been having a lot of fun on my shaman doing Torghast, and I feel Torghast could be, hey, you want to kill 30 minutes or you don't have a group to play because you have no friends. Let's be honest, friends are hard to make past 30, okay? It's hard to make friends. How do you even make friends after 30? Doesn't matter. If you have no friends, you can play Torghast, solo content. What character would be great for Torghast? Maybe that's what you're interested the most in this game. So setting goals is the number one priority. In my example, when I set goals, I prioritize mythic rating first, then mythic plus content, and then I like to have a class that's going to be good at both, because I enjoy having a bit of mythic rating and mythic plus, because I could never see myself pushing just mythic plus content because I would get bored, and I could never see myself pushing just mythic rating because I would get bored as well. So that's my goal. So that's very, very important. And this is gonna tie in really, really well in the next part of the video. And that is, should you play the best? And this is something that everyone should watch before watching these ranking videos about best healers, best DPS, best tanks, and things like that. Majority of the time, the people that watch those videos, they don't actually need to play those classes. So hear me out, guys. A lot of times when people set the goals, they don't meet those goals, or the goals are too high. For example, my goal is to do mythic rating, but at the end of the day, I need a class that's also going to be capable of doing world first rating in case. So a lot of people make these classes about the in case scenarios, where like, in case I'm going to get rank 1 healer, I need my class to be able to play or be optimal in that situation. And all of a sudden players start playing classes they don't need to play. That is the biggest crime, in my opinion, when you're picking a main character, is picking a class that's the best in that field, but even though you hate that class. I think your enjoyment of the game is going to be severely diminished over a long period of time if you stick to something that's the best. Sometimes the most fun healer, DPS, or tank is the one that puts the biggest numbers. For a lot of people out there, they don't really care about the gameplay aspect. They just want to be the number one. They want to be the best on the logs, they want to be the best on DPS, they want to be the best on healing. And there's nothing wrong with that. It really depends on the type of player, and I cover that in setting goals. Maybe your goal is to be the top HPS or DPS. But now, should you play the best? Like I talked about this. A lot of the times, and this is the really fun part, I think the highest key that Holy Priest did in BFA was a 26. Was a plus 26 in time. How many people here watching this video or looking at ranking videos and things like that are probably going to do a 26? We looked at this previously at the statistics, World of Warcraft statistics, and it was very, very interesting. Again, these are not fully confirmed, but this is general guesstimates. Is that if you actually have the Mythic Keystone dungeon achievement, where you get every dungeon plus 15 completed in time, you're pretty much in the top 10% of the population. So by just completing plus 15s, all of them, you're in the top 10%. Do you know what the percentage makeup is for the players that actually do 26 content? So all of a sudden, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of players are making their choice of classes based on what 100 people do. So you have to think about this. You have to think about it, that the top 1% has a monopoly on what classes everyone should play to some extent. So this is why I say be very, very careful about playing the best. Every healer is going to be capable of doing high content. The amount of players that play this game in a casual way is way more than people assume. The percentages of people that do really high content is very little. So all of a sudden, if you're looking to do a plus 15 content, if you're looking plus 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22s, 23s, you don't need to play a certain class. Every class is going to be capable of doing it. Flip side, community perception exists. If you're playing a Holy Priest in Shadowlands, there is a chance, maybe not a super high chance, but there is a chance a group discrimination is going to happen and people will be like, hey, you're playing a Holy Priest. I don't want to invite you here for this plus 15 key. You have to consider, do you want to join a group that's not going to invite you because you play a Holy Priest? Probably not. You want to stay away from those kind of people because those kind of people are going to be blaming their failures to classes. They'll be like, hey, we didn't do this 15 because we had a Holy Priest in a group. And it's probably because, not because of the class, but because they're bad. But people don't admit that to themselves. They rather blame their class before looking at themselves in terms of their knowledge of the mobs and the knowledge of the dungeon and knowledge of their class that they're playing. You can make an underdog class absolutely work really well. And there's something about playing an underdog class and doing well and doing high keys or high mythic rating and just saying to the world, hey, you told me this class is really terrible, I'm doing pretty well. There is something to that. Some people might play a class because it's underdog. You don't have to play the best class unless you're looking to do like rank 1 content. There is a flip side. Community perception is a thing. Also, mythic rating, I'm gonna make this point, and I know a lot of people might disagree with me. A lot of people will say like, you don't need to build a proper raid roster with the best classes unless you're like a top 100 world guild. Which makes sense. If someone says that to you, it makes a whole lot of sense. Guilds like Limit, they're doing content, they're doing world bosses before they're nerfed. They're doing content that's extremely hard. They need every single bit of item level. They need classes that provide every single percentage of increases. So guilds like that need everything. But I would argue the point is that, let's say, top 500 world guild or something. I think they also need any help that they can get because they don't have the best players in the world, if you know what I mean. Even these top 4, 5, 600 guilds or whatever, they don't have like the player base or the roster that Limit has. Even though the bosses are nerfed, I still feel they need every bit of advantage you can get. Of course, they don't need a healer or DPS or a tank meta comp to beat bosses, but is it gonna help them? It will, and it'll give them a higher chance of success even though if they mess up something. So when I talk about raids, you don't need to play the best class, but it does help in certain situations. And I think this is applicable to everything. I think you can make any class work. It just depends on how hard or how high you want to push. But I don't want people, especially people who are doing heroic level content and even entry level mythic content to some extent, to play a class that they really dislike because a ranking said that they're the best. You cannot have a bad time in World of Warcraft if you play a class that you really, really enjoy. And now this moves on to the next point, and that is, why play a healer? A lot of people come to me and say like, hey MadSkillz, why are you spending 40 hours a week playing healers? I genuinely feel healing is probably the most fun role in World of Warcraft by a large margin. There are multiple reasons for that. Number one reason for me is that you have to make split-second decisions all the time. It's unlike any other role in the game, in my opinion. Not only you have to make sure that people don't die, you need to make sure to heal people, but you also have to try and optimize your DPS, you have to avoid mechanics, you have to use your defenses and things like that. So it is a genuinely, if you play a healer really, really well, I think it's the hardest role to play. If you optimize everything, because right now in the last couple expansions, healer DPS has become a really big thing. So now sometimes in high keys and raiding, people might be like, why are you doing so little damage as a healer? That's a thing in high-end raiding. The one thing that people are really scared about is that they feel they're responsible for everybody. People are really, really scared to go into healing because all of a sudden, especially in Mythic Plus, you're the only healer. In raiding, you have multiple healers, so if someone dies, you'll be like, hey, it's not my fault, it's that other guy's fault. so people don't feel that scared to play in raids. But in Mythic Plus as a healer, if someone dies, it is on you, or at least it feels like it's on you, and it absolutely isn't in a lot of cases. I would like to say that the more longer you play a healer, the more bitter you get about people's mistakes. If someone stands and stuff, of course you should heal them up and things like that, but generally speaking, if someone gets one shot, or if someone makes a huge mistake and someone dies, it is not your fault. The problem is that new healers, when they start playing healing or healing specs, they feel no matter what happens, it is their fault. They should have done something. They should have made something else, they should have pressed something else, they should have focused more on healing instead of DPS, or something along those lines. And they feel personally responsible for everything and anything that happens in the group, they feel responsible for it. And I feel it's a bad thing that discourages people from playing healers. On top of that, a lot of people, again, there's a lot of toxic people. Like I played a key very recently with some, I'm not gonna name a player, but the player died multiple times and kept asking me for battle res, even though I had no battle res, and kept spamming me saying that you need to battle res, you need to battle res, you need to battle res. And just got super angry about it and start calling out, like saying nonsense for just no reason whatsoever. No reason whatsoever and things like that. Oh, what are you doing? There is a lot of toxic people out there, especially if you're a healer or a tank. Tanks get it the worst in my opinion in Mythic Plus dungeons, because if you don't know the route as a tank, you get slammed. If you don't heal as a healer, you get slammed. And I feel like this discourages people from playing healing specs. The best way to describe this is the example I always use when anyone asks me or someone asks me about healing, and that is HPS is not always a thing to determine what's good or bad, because, for example, if you're a Resto Druid, you're doing a raid, everyone's 50% HP, you're about to cast Wild Growth, which is an AoE heal that's going to provide you a lot of raw HPS. But there is a person who's 10% HP, and that person is about to die. Are you going to cast Regrowth, which is very inefficient heal, costs a lot of mana? Are you going to cast Regrowth on that person, or are you going to cast Wild Growth, which is going to give you more HPS? If you're a person that casted Regrowth and saved that person's life, and another Druid casted Wild Growth, they're going to look better on the meters, but you saved that person's life. So, if you look at it, which was the best way of doing it? So this is why I feel HPS is really a bad way of determining what is a good or bad healer. I feel like healers have to make split-second decisions, and those split-second decisions make playing the game super interesting. Every time I swap to DPS, I do get bored of it. I do get bored of it a lot of the times, and I wish I go back to healing. And this is why I really enjoy healing in general. So before this video gets way too long, if you're deciding on playing a character in World of Warcraft, I urge you to set a goal in terms of what you want to achieve in World of Warcraft. Think about the fact whether you need to play what's the best, and whether you need to compromise a fun of a class in order to play a class that's better. Think about the fact that maybe you need to look into raid, maybe a raid group or your raid leader asks you to play a certain class, or maybe they already have like 20 Resto Druids and they need you to play a priest. Do you want to take that into consideration? Because I'm a type of player that does take in guild requirements, because I don't hate any single healing spec or a class in game. I can legitimately main any healer if a guild tells me like, hey, you should really focus on this. So take that into consideration. Do you want to please your guild or your Mythic Plus group by playing someone else? Maybe you don't mind that. And also take into a fact that, do you want to play a hybrid class? Do you want to do multiple roles? And if you don't have enough time, playing a hybrid class can actually be a very good source of, you know, keeping things fresh in terms of playing tanks, DPS and healers, and not having to maintain multiple or gearing up relatively easy. And if you want to play a healer, I think it's the most fun role in World of Warcraft. I think there's a lot of responsibility, but if you're looking for something new, the responsibility is extremely fun. And you get better along the way, and the skill cap is extremely high because DPS is also something that makes a healer good. So you can really have a lot of things to do. Thank you guys for watching this video, and I'll see you in my next guide.